Hello there and welcome back to my channel. It is of course only me again, and in this week's video we are not out metal detecting, but as promised I am going to show you how to input the Legacy 2.0 program onto the WS6 Master Puck. So last week's video I showed you the updated settings to the Legacy program and how you would input them on the Deus 2 RC. Well, a lot of you have asked how you would go about doing it on the WS6 Puck. So I'm going to use this video as a step-by-step walkthrough on how you would get this program saved onto your Puck. So let's get straight into it. First of all, you just need to obviously turn your Puck on and navigate to program number 2. Number 2 is program sensitive, and that is the program that this particular custom preset is based off. Now, I'm really sorry about this reflection. I have absolutely no way of getting rid of it. It's because of the light in the room. So if you can't see anything, of course, I'll put all of the settings in the description of this video. So first of all, what we're going to do is actually push the settings button here. And you can see that it says settings. Well, if you push that button again, it says audio. Now we need to enter the audio menu, which means we need to hold this button down. So just hold it down until you see volume. Now, if you hold volume down again, you'll go into the equalizer. Okay. Now the equalizer for this program has got obviously 4 bands, and the very first band is going to be plus 9 dB. So you just need to make sure it says plus 9 dB at the top on the first band. Now to move it across to the next band, you just push this button here and you'll see that that one is set to plus 3 decibels. Push it again and you'll see that it's going along there to the third band, and that is 0 decibels. And push it again and you're at the very last band there, and that is also going to be plus 9 decibels. So once you've programmed your graphic equalizer to look just like this, then you can push the back button. Now, it is important to mention that the graphic equalizer is very much a personal preference, but from my experience, it really does help with this program, along with the tone breaks that we're also going to program in a minute. So if you find those a little bit too harsh on your ears, then you can adjust them. It's not really going to make too much of a difference, but I really find that they help with regards to telling me what's good in terms of ferrous and iron, and what's great in terms of high conductors, silver, copper, etc. So now that we've come out of there, we've just gone straight back to the volume menu. And if you push this button here again, you'll notice that I use pulse width modulation, PWM tones. You can have that on whatever you want. If you prefer square, then just program in square, but I like PWM. So next up, we are going to go into the audio filter, and that is set to 0. So we're going to leave that on 0. And then look, we come straight back around here onto the volume menu. Now to come out of the settings here, we just have to push this button. And then of course, we're coming right out of any of the settings, including the audio settings, by pushing that one again. So we're back at the normal horseshoe home screen. And now we are just going to go through and start programming in some of the actual settings. So we're going to push this button this time. And you'll notice that we just have a discrimination at 6.8. Well, we just need to notch that using the minus button all the way down until it says 3.3. Or you can go way too far like I've just done and have to go back up. But there we are, 3.3 is the magic number for this program, and that is what you want to keep it on. Now, whilst we're in the discrimination menu, we've got a few other sections that we need to try, and that's in the expert menu. So we're just going to hold this button down once again. So hold it down and you'll notice that we've gone into the expert menu of the discrimination. Sensitive is usually set to 3 tones, but we are going to change that so that it says 5 tones. We will change the 5 tones in a minute, but for now we're just going to quickly blast through this and change all of the other expert settings. bottle caps, we are going to change that so that it is on 2. Really good for iron rejection as well as bottle cap rejection. Don't worry, you are not going to miss any small coins, silver, copper alloy or anything like that. I find some absolutely tiny, thin little coins with this, even at bottle caps 3. So it's not going to push those out. Push that button again and you'll notice that we have a notch on the sensitive program. This is a Coke notch, but we are going to change the notch because we want this to say 23 to 27. So if you don't know anything about notches, what this is basically saying is that if you have a TDI number, a target identification number, TID, anything with a number of 23 to 24 won't come up and you won't hear it. Okay, so it's basically saying you can go out, metal detect, and if anything comes up between those numbers, it's not going to disturb you, so you're not going to hear it, so you can just pretend that it's not there. Now that's obviously for Coke, but we are going to change this ever so slightly by holding down this button here. And then we just need to adjust this up very slightly by pushing the plus key. Now, as I said, we want this between 23 and 27. And when we're there, all we need to do is push this back button here. There we go. That has now saved the notch in of 23 and 27. And guys, you can put any notch on any program you want, but I find that this really helps just pushing out some of the Coke in some of my areas. It's quite a wide notch, but you're not going to find much between 23 and 27 anyway. So yeah, leave the notch on and hopefully that will make things nice and quiet and nice and stable for you. So once we're done, we just need to push this button again and we're going to go into the silencer. The legacy program uses no silencer at all. So of course we're going to use the minus key to just put the silencer on 0. And we're going to push this button and we've come back to 5 tones. So this is where we are now going to program all of our different tones. Now each tone should resemble a different sort of band within the 1 to 100 target identification numbers. So let's hold this button down and it will ask us to program the very first tone. So the first tone is going to be 211 Hertz. That's actually the noise that the detector is going to make. Now, for some people, that's just going to sound completely alien, but it works on an audio scale and different frequencies generate different types of audio. Generally, the higher the frequency, the sort of higher the actual sound will be. The lower the frequency, the lower the sound will be. 211 Hertz is generally considered quite a low sort of frequency, okay? So what we're saying is that the very first sound is going to be 211, and then if we push this button again, it's going to say anything with a target ID of 3.3 or below is going to be 211, but we want this volume to be at 0. So essentially, it doesn't really matter what you put in that very first tone segment. The 211 was just sort of, you know, a number that I plucked out of thin air. But it doesn't matter what you put in there because we aren't going to hear it. And that's basically saying that anything between 0 and 3.3, we are not going to hear at all. So that's the very first tone segment done. Now let's go on to the second one. The second one is actually going to be set to 197 Hertz. So we've got to come down quite a lot because it started at 518. So technically we are using a 5-tone program, but actually we're only using 4 audio tones for different types of metal. So let's think about this as our very first tone. It's going to have a sound of 197 Hertz, which is far less than the 211 Hertz, which means it's going to be a very low, dirty, grunty sound. And then we want the tone break for this one to be at 33. This means anything between 3.3 and now 33 is going to have a sound of 197 Hertz applied to it. Very low, very buzzy, very grunty. And the volume for this one we want at 10. So we'll just keep that at 10. Let's move on to tone break number 3. Technically, don't forget, this is going to be tone break number 2. We want this to be at 630 Hertz. So a huge difference there between the first one, which is 197, and 630. This one's going to be much brighter, much more prominent within the audio scale. Push the button again, and we want this tone break to be at a value of 55. That means anything between 33 and 55 will sound like 630 Hertz within that audio scale. And we want the volume for this to be at volume 10 as well. Let's move on to tone break number 4. And this one is going to be very, very close to tone break number 3, but it's actually going to be 687 Hertz. So just a slight variation there in tones throughout that middle section. Push this button again, and we want this tone break to be 73. So again, the difference between the last tone and this tone is that we have now gone from 55 to 73. Anything between 55 and 73 is going to have a tone break of 687 Hertz applied to it. Much higher, much cleaner. Let's go on to the last one. The last one here, sorry, the volume we want for that one is volume 10 again. So the very last tone break, which is tone break 5, but technically is tone break number 4, because remember, we're not using that first tone break. It's just there to dull out some of the ground noise. We want this one to go all the way up to 961. So we are almost topping the scale here of those audio frequencies. Super, super high pitched, super clean, nice, exactly what you want out in the field. It's going to tell you if you've got something really big and super high conductive. So when yours says 961, just push this button again. It's going to say here, well, what do you want the tone break to be? It's not giving you an option, because essentially we are now operating at the highest level, and previously we set it to 73, which means that this tone break, because it's the last tone break, now covers the space between 73 and all the way up to 100. So you don't get to change this. It's already preset. It's just basically taking that very last section from 73 all the way to the end. Skipping on to the volume, that is also volume number 10. So that is now us done on all of those tone breaks. And pushing that button again just takes us straight back to that very first tone break that we previously set to 211 Hertz. So to come out of this menu, we just push the cog, and that takes us straight back out of there. We've now done all of the expert settings, so we can push the cog again. And look, we are back onto the discrimination. So let's go through a few more of these program settings. Push that button and you'll notice sensitivity. Sensitivity for this program is at 95. So using the plus and minus keys there, navigate so that it says 95. And once you're there, you just push this button again. Now it's asking us for a frequency max. Push the minus key until that says 24. Now, one thing you can do whilst you're in this menu is hold down this button and it will take you to the frequency shift. Mine is at 3. I would suggest you put that anywhere between 1, 2 and 3. But of course, when you're out in the field, if you do experience a bit of feedback from those pesky Manticore users or other Deus users, then it might be worth you just doing a quick frequency scan. But anywhere between 1, 2 and 3 usually serves you pretty well in most circumstances. Now push the cog icon to come back out of there, and then push this button again to go straight through the program menu to iron volume. You'll notice iron volume is at 0. The reason why that is at 0 is because iron volume essentially is tone 1. It's just called a different thing because it can be utilized slightly differently if you use less tones. But because we're using 5 tones, we are using the first tone as our iron volume, and we've asked the machine not to let us hear anything between 3.3 discrimination and below. So we don't need an iron volume, and that's why it's set to 0. But do remember, that doesn't mean that you're not going to hear iron. In fact, quite the contrary. This program is going to let you hear every single piece of iron. It's going to scream iron at you. So whatever that says on there, it's not quite true because we've swapped this for different tone break segments within our 5 tones. So let's push this button again, and you'll notice reactivity is set to 2.5. For the legacy program, we are going to change that up to 3. Remember, this is reactivity. It's basically recovery speed. It dictates how fast you can swing and how fast the machine will pick up targets based on your swing speed and how mineralized and polluted the ground is. 3 is a really good number. Very rare circumstances you'll ever have to change it, but my advice is stick to 3 unless you really know why you're changing it down. And if you know why you're changing it down, then you might have a good reason to do it. But if not, just keep it on 3. Make it simple. Let's push this button again, and you'll notice that audio response is on 4. Let's hit that plus key there and change that to 5. That's just going to boost some of those really faint little targets for us and just, help us in getting a bit of depth from the ground. And now when we push this button, you'll notice that it goes to the ground balance value, always preset to 87. Let's just push it again, and we have come straight back to the very beginning of the program menu where we'd previously set the discrimination to 3.3. That is the legacy program, okay? That is everything programmed in now. You could, if you wanted to, choose go out, use this, and off you go. However, if you turn your machine off, you're not going to have saved all of those settings in. So that's what you need to do now. Let's push the cog icon and come back to the home screen, the horseshoe home screen. Now what we need to do is actually save this as a custom program. So what we're going to do is access the settings menu. That's using the cog icon here. So let's just push that once. And you'll notice that we are already in the audio settings, but we don't want that because we've already changed those. So we just have to push the cog one more time, and you'll notice it says program. This is where you can save all of your custom programs into the WS6 Puck. Now to enter the programming menu, you hold down the button, and that takes us into the programming menu where of course it says, do you want to save this custom program? So what you would do is you would hold down the cog icon one more time, okay? And then essentially it will say, do you want to save it? Yes, you do. And then you confirm using this button, and then you can exit out of the menu. So I'm not going to do it because I have already saved this custom program in. What happens is on the WS6 Puck, you get a slot per custom program. So what that basically means is that when you're on sensitive, which is custom program number 2, when you save a new program in using that particular base program, it saves it in the next available slot. And you'll notice that we're still using 2, but next to it is a little user icon indicating that that is your custom program. This is the legacy program. So obviously on the WS6 Puck, you can't name a program, but you don't really have to, because to be honest, it's really simple to save it in, and you can save a program next to preset 1, preset 2, preset 3, and just keep all of your custom programs in there. Now, some of you, and this is a little tip, some of you have said, well, what if I want to use 2 programs that use the same base program? Well, technically, program number 2 and 3, and I think 4, which is fast, all use the same base program. So if you want a program that's using sensitive full tones, but you already have a program that's programmed into the sensitive full tones, then you could go on to program 4, which is fast, and basically make that program, because it's exactly the same as sensitive full tones. It's just that sensitive full tones has different modifications within the program menu, and it's got a higher reactivity. So you can still save more slots in, you just sort of have to remember where you've saved them. But there we are, guys. That is how you would save in the program, the Legacy 2.0 program, into your WS6 Master Puck. It's nice and quick, nice and simple, and hopefully this video has helped you gain a little bit more experience as to how you would navigate the menu, and also why you would want to build custom programs, make them really work for your land as well. But that really is it for this video. Thank you all once again for your feedback for the legacy program. Please go out, please try it, and let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, because I absolutely love to hear all of the success that you are getting with the legacy program. And in next week's video, I am going to be back out metal detecting, so stay tuned for that one. But until then, I will catch all of you on the very next hole.